Okay, fantastic.
So it's recording now. So welcome everyone. 4th of April, our NLP Connect session. And this evening's session topic is around the human needs and satisfying those in this peculiar time of uncertainty. So welcome everyone for joining us again. Nice to see some people who we saw last week and some new people again. And we've had a good response from everyone who joined us previously. So we're carrying on the same sort of approach. We have just the hour of conversation and we're hoping to share some lovely, simple insights with you on a particular topic. For some of you, this might be a reminder. For some of you, it might be very fresh and new stuff. For sometimes it seems like almost common sense what we're looking at. But what we find and the feedback we get is that how important it is, the self-awareness, the actual consideration of these things and taking the time out to reflect. So hopefully as we work through and share the information, you'll also be gaining some insights by simply asking yourself some of the questions and considering where you sit in relation to the topic we're discussing.
And we're breaking some of the new boundaries for us this evening as well, because we've started to use some other aspects of the technology. So fingers crossed that works okay as well. I wanted to say a couple of things really in terms of the last session, which was our first session that we ran on developing new habits. Thanks to everybody for the fantastic feedback that we received. And what's been great for us is people have been telling us about the new habits that they've started to develop as a result of some of the things that we did last time. So feel free to use the chat option this evening if you have indeed started a new habit yourself. And I'm sure this is applying to all of us, whether it be in the garden or some physical activity or a lot of new online things. Please feel free to share those as we go through. One of the interesting things about tonight's session is we're going to follow on from that really and look at if you have chosen to develop a new habit over the last 2 or 3 weeks, what is it that's actually driven that? So what's the thing that's actually caused you to choose to develop a particular habit? And hence we get into the area of what are these basic human needs? So we'll go on, right?
Will I kick off in terms of, if you share the screen, just the human needs that we're going to discuss here are 6 basic human needs, psychological needs, and they've really been penned and gathered together like that by Tony Robbins, who is a great coach and who connects with over 300 was it 300 million, loads and loads and loads of people. He built his concepts around, or these 6 topics, he built them in consideration and further consideration, like on top of the Maslow's pyramid of needs. So this is one that so many people are familiar with, where we start with the basic needs for shelter, for safety, and then it builds up to self-actualization. Now,
I'm just going to share that right now, yeah.
So this pyramid that I think many of us will be familiar with. So we say the fundamental basic needs is the physical ones and our safety. And then as we go up, then it's about love and belonging, esteem, into self-actualization. Now, what Tony's looking at is more towards the top end of the pyramid, where he's considering this physiological, the psychological needs for human beings in the first instance. So it's almost taken as read that the shelter, the food, the water is available. These are the things that keep us ticking in terms of our psychological needs. And that these are the things that need to be satisfied. Every choice that a human being makes is based on satisfying these needs. That's sort of our internal and our innate drivers. So what we're suggesting we do, we're going to walk through the 6 needs, giving you examples of what they are. And I hope as you do this, perhaps it's useful for you to note down. We won't have a slide up all the time as we're chatting through them, but to consider them in relation to yourself, where you're at, how these are being satisfied, how you're satisfying these in general in life, and perhaps also specifically at this time when things have changed so much. So as we chat them through, perhaps how could you not start applying them to yourself and wondering, what is it that I do? How is this need being satisfied? What am I doing to satisfy it? So if you've got a sheet of paper and a pen, just note it down. So we will be prompting you just to consider the so what of these in relation to yourself and your own life.
So in terms of the 6 needs, hopefully you can see the screen now. We're going to take you through these pretty quickly, but as you can see, certainty and variety, and the important thing about them is they actually come in pairs. So and you'll see how this works as we talk you through them. So we have certainty and variety. And another way of thinking about variety, incidentally, is uncertainty. Then we have a pairing of significance and connection. Another way of thinking about that is love, whatever that might mean. And then we have growth and contribution. So certainty, variety, significance, connection, growth and contribution. So we're going to take you through those 2 by 2, basically.
2 by 2. And which of us is going to kick off with certainty, Kevin, you or I?
So I'll kick off with certainty. So
okay.
The basic idea with all of the human needs is that this is something that we are dependent on for our well-being. And the key one about certainty is we need to be sure, we need to have reassurance that we're not going to suffer pain, and we need to have the reassurance that there are going to be opportunities for gaining pleasure. And if you think about this in relation to yourself, as I think about this in relation to myself, I need certain things to be in place, whether that be something to do with home and possessions, or with family, financial situation, working situation. We all need to have a degree of certainty, and this of course will vary from person to person. But I think wherever you are on that scale, you will still require some knowing in terms of those different aspects of your life.
Okay. And the counter side to that certainty is the uncertainty of variety. So it's a little bit of a paradox here, really. What we're saying is that the human needs, we have a need for both the different sides of a coin, as it were, for certainty, as Kevin's described, but also for variety. And in the variety and the uncertainty is surprise, challenge, excitement, things being different, stretching us a bit, chaos even. Maybe that's an extreme, but it's the opposite to things being stable and static. It's the adventure, it's change, it's novelty. It's that desire to be doing something different, stretching, things not being, the other language might be, so you're not bored. If you get, the paradox here is that if you have too much certainty, there is a potential that you become bored and then you start craving variety. So for each of us, we'll have a different level in this balance as to what, keeps us ticking or joyful or human, I suppose, because we're talking about basic human needs, what satisfies those needs in a way that's right for us. So we may find that in general, we have a tendency to look out for, enjoy more variety, or look out for more safety and consistency. And this will vary from individual to individual. But there is a balance here between the two that's quite interesting to consider.
Some of you will be maybe picking up on the fact that there is a parallel with some of the NLP meta programs, particularly sameness and difference for this pairing. The other thing that comes to mind for me is, again, a model that some of you will know, which is comfort stretch. And that's the idea, of course, that we have a requirement to be in our comfort zone a lot of the time, but we also need a degree of stretch in our life. So I think there's a fit with that particular model as well.
And I think as we move forward in the call, when we're starting to consider the current circumstances, perhaps we'll see that these two are the ones that are being tweaked somewhat in the current circumstances.
Yeah.
So the next two, oh, sorry, Kevin, were you saying something else?
No, I was just going to say, carry on. You carry on for the next two.
Okay, so the next two then are significance and the connection or love. Do you want to start with significance again, Kevin?
Yeah, so significance, very simply, a way to think about this is, for those of you familiar with the pyramid model, the DILTS development model, is to think about this as being about identity. So what's important to people is to have a very clear, unique identity that's very strong. There is a need to feel that one is important to some degree and that one is needed. And again, this is something that's being challenged currently, particularly, I would say, with a lot of people being out of the workplace. Because for a lot of people, they gain their self-respect, importance, sense of being needed by doing a job. And although a lot of us are still working from home, we've got to recognize that equally a lot of people are not doing that. So we're going to explore ways in which you are, if you're not working currently, finding that that need for expressing your uniqueness in some way.
Mm. And then again, Kevin, with you talking about the work situation changing, this one also relates when we look at connection dash love. The connection often is again found in those groupings that we choose, the teamwork. It's about the interpersonal communication. It's about attachments. So at whatever level those attachments are, but deep attachments, not superficial ones. So for many of us, that does come through our colleagues. It comes through our partners, our life partners. And it's that sense of being loved and connected and sharing. So I think that's one that we probably can pretty much understand, the connection, and it's one that again does impact what we're doing now and how things are changing. Again, there's the paradox, this is why we've sort of paired these two up again, is that if you spend too much time satisfying or concerned about your significance, perhaps you can see that could cause some difficulties in finding and creating the connections with other people. So again, there's that balance between your own self and consideration of who I am, my identity, my uniqueness, and the need to notice similarities and be one with, to form that rapport and connection with other people that's required. So another interesting pairing there.
And the final pairing, again, what's interesting with the last two, similar to the previous ones, is that the one on the left-hand side is more about the personal, individual. The one on the right-hand side is more about that connection with other people. So the left-hand side one in the last pairing is about personal growth. So Uh, this is closely aligned and certainly part of what Maslow calls self-actualization. So it's really the need in NLP terms to be the best that you can be. So it's about personal development, it's about personal growth, it's about learning, and it's about using your skills in the best way that you can.
So then we turn to contribution, and again, a wonderful word that seems to describe it very well. It's that sense of service to people and things other than yourself. A focus on helping, giving and supporting others. So making a difference. Again, very often we might have talked about purpose, you know, a purpose either at organizational levels, we certainly discuss that, but also as an individual, that sense that you're connected and contributing to something other than yourself. And I think Kevin and I, when we were looking at this, it's interesting how often when we do a value solicitation, which is simply asking people what's important to them in their life, how often that sense of making a difference and contributing comes up, as there is a relationship between all these 6 points coming up, that these are very strong generic drivers for people.
Okay, so time for a bit of participation now. What we would like you to do is, now you've heard what each of those 6 are all about, we'd like you to think about yourself in relation to them, and not just in the current situation, which we have to say is unique. We want you to think about yourself over the last 10, 20, 30 years, and think about the order of these 6 human needs. So we want you to rank them in an order that feels right for you, with the most important one for you being at the top. So we'll just give you 2-3 minutes to do that. If you're good with the technology and you can raise your hands to tell us when you've finished it, that would be great.
Well, I haven't worked out how to do that, Kevin, on my little phone here. There must be a more or something. Oh well.
Oh, I've got a thumbs up from Rita.
That's the one I found.
Very good.
Claps or thumbs up was my option, I think. Oh, we've got a thumbs up visual for Chris.
Yeah, excellent.
That's another way of doing it.
And Chrissy as well, excellent, very good.
Dan looks like he's done it. Salma looks like she's ready.
Salma's mastered the technology. She's raised a digital hand there. Well done.
Oh, another thumbs up from Layla. Excellent.
Fantastic. Very good. Yeah, Chris is
the people we can't see the visuals. I think if we have a general sense that most people have done that.
Fabulous. Okay, so one of the things that Tony Robbins particularly talks about is that there will be 2 or 3 that are very significant for you and will be your key drivers. And again, coming back to this unique situation we all find ourselves in currently, these will be the drivers that will be really up front on your radar, and you'll be doing your best to satisfy if they're not already being satisfied. So you may be making some readjustments at the moment to make sure that you're still happy with those particular drivers. So the new part of the technology for us, we've set up a little poll here, and we have the 6 needs there. So if you can click on which is your number 1, And then what we should have is a group picture. Oh, this is great. I can see all of these scores going up and down.
Ooh, I did get an error message when I input mine, Kevin, but
Yeah. It's looking good. Okay. So we've got 14, 15 people in at the moment, which is fabulous. They're all coming in anonymously, by the way, just in case you're concerned about that. Okay, so if I say end polling now, then it should allow me to share it, yeah?
it should, yes.
Okay, so we got 16 out of 17. It may be your vote that didn't go in. So let me just share the results here. Okay, can you all see that, by the way? You all see the results? Yeah. So we have 38% of the vote is connection and love. Then we have certainty in second place, 25%. And then the other three, variety, growth, and contribution, are pretty much equal with 13%. And nobody went for significance, which is interesting. I don't know if that's particularly representative of the kind of people that we are in an NLP Connect group.
Maybe.
Don't have a high need to feel significant, but that's interesting. Let me just unmute people actually, and we will just open up if anybody's got any particular thoughts.
Observations? Surprises in any of that result? Or what it meant for you yourself in terms of that choice you were making then?
I think it was difficult to make a choice. Putting them in order and then looking at them again after you put them in order, there were lots of things that you could have changed them to, but I stuck with the first set.
Yeah.
I think it was difficult with certainty and connection and love, and I certainly ranked certainty number one, and I'm wondering whether that's partly the situation I'm in at the moment. I don't know. It was very close for me.
I certainly, in looking at the over time thing, I felt I would have made a different thing if we'd saying the last month, say, things would be different.
I think it's quite difficult to detach ourselves almost from the current situation and take an objective long-term view. Probably, you know, if we look at the two that have come out top, connection and certainty, they are probably the two that are being the most challenged at the moment. So it's interesting.
Yeah. I mean, we're not suggesting that this is the most scientific selection or poll on this. However, just as the pausing and pondering it is quite interesting. I think it was Chris who said, you know, you put down your first gut feel, but as you sort of think about it, things come to mind as, what does that actually mean to me personally? And that's the value of it, just that bit of exploration, self-awareness and exploration of what these things mean. And I think it is interesting that those two were coming up strongest even in our little poll here, which we might not be surprised at given the current circumstances.
Okay, let's move on. We've got another little activity for you now, so let me stop sharing that one. I'm just going to mute everybody and then remember to unmute Rita. Okay, if I can find you, Rita, where have you gone? It's interesting. I can't see you on the list at the moment. You must be further down. Just bear with me a second. There you are. Okay. All right.
Oh, excellent. Thank you.
Now, what we want you to do now is to to think about the 6 human needs in relation to where you are at this particular time. And what we'd like you to do is to give them a score out of 10, each of them, in terms of how much do you feel they're being satisfied currently. So if we take that one on connection as an example, you know, how connected and loved up, maybe, which is part of that, how connected do you feel currently? Is it a 10 out of 10? Is it a 1 out of 10, or somewhere in between? So again, we'll just give you a few minutes just to give each of those a satisfaction score.
We've got another little point to share as well, Kevin, haven't we? Maybe before or after we do the poll.
What's that?
Just that differentiation between the top 4 and the bottom.
Yeah, good point. We'll do that one as well. Yeah.
Do you want thumbs up again, or
smiles thumbs up, any kind of indicator? Yeah, let's see.
Ooh.
Dan, excellent, very good. And Mark and Catherine and Chris and Rita and Liz and Salma. Fabulous.
And Jonathan did it in camera.
Yeah, very good. Excellent. Okay, so should we do our second poll rate first before we go into the
Yes, let's do that.
Yeah, all right.
Because it's so much fun.
Yeah, so what we want to do now is for you to indicate, we're going to put the list back up again, and we want you to click on which one of the 6 is currently the least satisfied for you. And I think this will be interesting because it will tell us quite a lot about our current situation. So there we go. So which one is the least satisfied at the moment? It's fascinating seeing all these results come in and how it changes. Okay, we've got 13.
You're the only one privy to that, Kevin.
Fabulous. We've got 15 out of 16. Okay, that's great. So let's just end polling there and let's share the results. So this is what the panel has said. So the one of those 6 needs which is least satisfied is certainty. And then we have variety, significance, contribution, and connection. And growth is the one which is being satisfied, certainly, not necessarily the most. So that's great to hear. You're all doing personal development by the sounds of it, from the comfort of your own homes.
Well, I suppose growth is such a wonderful broad thing. It's not just about that planned development. It's the stretch that we're in currently would be satisfying. I'm satisfying some of my growth needs through that, I think, enjoying the stretch and variety, etc., etc.
Yeah, absolutely. And no surprises, I suppose, that certainty is the one that's under challenge at the moment, given the current circumstances. And again, variety. It's an interesting one, that, isn't it? Because a lot of us will be doing some quite different things, or different routines anyway at the moment. But most of those things are being done from the confines of our own home and garden. So, you know, there's no variety in terms of going out, meeting people, going to the pub, the restaurant, the cinema, you know, visiting friends, whatever it might be. So I guess that would explain that one.
And maybe just thinking about that now, Kevin, maybe it's like you get up every day and we're still in lockdown. You know, there's something very stable about the current situation, as well as all the instability of certain aspects. Every day I wake up and know that I'm not going outside. I'm not doing all those things I used to do.
Yeah, and I guess the other one there is this need for significance, need to demonstrate and reinforce our own uniqueness and let our light shine, as it were. Maybe there's a lack of opportunities to do that currently for a lot of us as well. Okay, so one of the things that we wanted to also share was this one. Just bear with me a second.
So Tony's differentiated amongst the 6 of the needs. He classified the top 4 that we've discussed as what we need just essential for human survival. Again, this is relating to our psychological needs. That these 4, the certainty, variety, significance, and connectedness, these are those that are essential for our human survival. So we will be searching for this and making these happen for us in whichever way we choose to do it. Daily, they will always be driving our behaviors, whether we choose to satisfy them in a way that's useful or not so useful. And then the other 2 he describes as much more those things that are useful for our spiritual growth, and for that human actualization and fulfillment. So the growth and the contribution are, I don't know, the icing on the cake. They're the things that give us that true sense of fulfillment, the joy in our lives, that extra topping of spiritual, soulful, usefulness, connectedness, purposefulness. So that those 2, when those 2 are satisfied, that's when we are truly at our best, the phrase Kevin used earlier.
Okay, so what we wanted you to take away, apart from what we're sharing with you, is a little activity, and it's just to think about, to identify the ways in which you are currently meeting those 6 needs. So if we accept that these are all needs that we have individually, and you now know what your top 3 is, your top 1, you've got a sense of how well they're currently being satisfied. Just make a list, 2 columns. In the first column, it's how am I currently meeting these needs? And again, you can do this with a partner, you know, with a friend, just to help them kind of understand how their needs are being met as well. And then the second column really is for ideas. Particularly if your scores are low, what else is it that you can do now you recognize these human needs? What else is it that you can do in terms of activities to get those scores, those satisfaction ratings higher? So that's something that you can do, and if you want to, you know, share those with us at some later date, that would be great. So just to kind of get the wheels moving on some of those, Rita and I gave this some thought. So Rita, in terms of the first 2, certainty and variety, what kind of things have you been doing over the last 3, 4, 5 weeks?
Well, I think there's certainly new routines established in my life that I've established, and this gives me that security and safety. So it's my daily routines, my PE, my walking, and making regular calls. I've also, so that's the practical structure to my day. I noted down something else, is that I'm reminding myself. So for certainty, I'm reminding myself that there is plenty of food, that I am, you know, in loving relationships and I have people around me. So that's giving me that comfort and security as well. Just reminding myself, it's the opposite to me just watching scary news announcements, etc., etc. It's me reminding myself that actually, you know, I'm in a very fortunate place and enjoying lots of things. And it's that I can cope with things. It's reminding myself that we've been through times in the past, you know, on a personal level. There have been things in my life that have challenged me and caused me to feel uncertain and insecure for a period of time, but I know I've got through that I've drawn on whatever resources, and that gives me a reassurance, again, a certainty that I will, whatever gets thrown at us. And basically humankind's like that. We adapt, we're flexible, we're made to be so. And I call upon, maybe more so in those early weeks, I think now I'm feeling a little bit more settled, but certainly just reminding myself that, wait a minute, we cope with a lot, you know, we evolve, we move on, and some of that stretching that's coming is good for me, even though some of my comfort blanket stuff or my usual stuff has gone out the window. What was that like for yourself, Kevin?
Well, I think the key thing for me in terms of certainty is really a recognition that I'm in quite a fortunate position compared to a lot of people in this country and a lot of people around the world. So, you know, in terms of certainty, I have a home, I have a garden, you know, friends, family, finances are okay. I'm sure it's a big stretch for a lot of people at this current moment in time. We have a little bit of uncertainty in terms of our business, but then again, you know, certain things we know plans are in place and we've adjusted. So I think sometimes it's about reminding oneself what things are certain in very uncertain times. So I think I personally found that very helpful.
And then the other side of the coin in terms of the variety, I mean, it is interesting because I think I was searching for stability in the first fortnight, and there's almost a bit of me craving a bit more variety, even at the moment, even though there's still things going. But the simple things, you know, like when I think we've shared before that I have the hobby that I'm encouraging myself to do more of, which is painting. And I'm going for I find myself not wanting to do the same style. So it's almost like there's something in me that just wants to be really abstract when I might have been more figurative or whatever. And I'm finding it quite interesting just to noticing that about myself. I'm looking for the difference in not doing the same walk every day. I mean, they seem like trivial things, but as I was thinking back to this, I'm thinking, you know, that's really important to me. I think in the longer term, the variety is quite high up on my personal values sort of scale, wanting things to be different and unique and challenging. And so once we've settled the predominant pieces, then I'm looking for, what can I do that's a little bit different today? So I've noticed that about myself over this period. And what about you, Kev?
Well, just one thing to say, we're going to open this up in 2 or 3 minutes to everybody else, so you can chip in and ask questions, etc. Just in terms of certainty and variety, I guess, what's quite interesting is if I think about one of the things that I've done, I always attended a couple of yoga classes a week in person, which now are not going ahead, of course. So one of the yoga schools that I go to has put all of the classes live online. So I immediately signed up for a pass to attend these. And what was kind of twice a week has now developed into 6 or 7 times a week, and trying different teachers and different styles. So that has given me quite a lot of variety, but it's also filled a certainty gap as well, because now I know that at certain times of the day, there is actually something in the diary, which, you know, so it's great to be able to do something to adapt and to flex, to make changes, that are actually filling both of those needs at the same time. So hopefully we won't go on and look at the other 4, but hopefully that's giving you some kind of ideas in terms of the kind of things that we've done and the kind of changes that we've made. So we'd encourage you to make your own list and just those things that you're currently doing and those things that you could do. So make it a very kind of proactive activity, really. Okay, so Rita, I think I've just unmuted everybody now. So we just want to open it up now in the last, what have we got, 10, 15 minutes. Any comments, questions, observations? Hopefully you're seeing the links between the habits session that we did last time and maybe explaining why you've developed some of those habits in relation to those 6 needs. So open to you guys, really. Any comments, questions, observations?
I've got an observation stroke question, I suppose, for Rita. Rita, I recognise fully the idea around the walking, because I, like you, have felt a bit, I suppose, enclosed is the word I've felt for the past few weeks. And we've been going out for walks, trying to avoid places like canals, because it's very difficult to be 2 meters apart from somebody if you're walking on a canal bank. And I wondered where something like control came in with this, because I don't have any control about how many times I can go out and almost how long I can go out for. But what I can control is where I go, so which direction. So we've been doing almost the same walk for the last few weeks, but doing it in different directions.
I think that's a really interesting point.
Control sit in this anywhere?
It fits in that certainty. Control's one of the things that fits in there. And as any of us who work with people who perhaps have been feeling sadder or in depression or anything, we know that one thing that's really helpful is for people to feel in control of even the smallest thing they're doing. So your example there that you choose whether you go left or right at the turning is an element of control within the context and the confines of the environment, those limitations and constraints that are being put on us. And I think they are the critical, sometimes they can be the smallest thing, but to know that you're the decision maker and you're choosing, that would fit in within the certainty, the safety and the control in your domain, that you can make the difference about it. I think that's a really good point to bring out if we hadn't mentioned control, because that's a key bit for us feeling secure, certainly for myself, and so many of my clients, just that sense of that I'm in control, even if it's of something small.
Yeah, right. Thank you.
Any more questions, observations?
I think it's a good opportunity, because we've all got so much space, or a lot of us have got so much time to ponder and think of new things to do, that it's a very good opportunity for growth. I mean, I've got piles of books in the house here, quite a few which I've never really touched. They've just got dust on them, but I've read 4 or 5 probably in the last few weeks. All based around growth and self-development. So I found it a very good opportunity to read some of those books and to get a real positive out of this climate we're in.
Excellent.
It's a good point, Jonathan, and just kind of tying those 2 points together, really. One of the things that I did today was to go for quite a long walk, actually, almost 2 hours. Not sure I should be saying that, really. Is there a limit of an hour? I don't know.
Maybe you missed it yesterday.
I'll make a note of that one.
Yeah, okay. Don't dub me in on that one. But one of the things that I did, which I hadn't done for a long time actually, was took well, it was on my phone, but it was an audio book, and it was personal development topic, and it was fantastic just to to do something that I'd not done for some time, and listen, be listening and engaging with the topic whilst walking in the fresh air as well. So, again, it does present opportunities to do different things.
And I think on the need of growth, I think something that we'll all be growing through this. I think there's no question that as we adapt and adjust and increase our flexibility, I mean, at a fundamental basis, Kevin and I using technology we weren't using before, there's those things, but there's, if we can take some space and time to reflect on, like the questions we're asking you here, or just how did I cope? How am I noticing what I'm actually feeling while all of this is happening? Becoming more aware of our feelings, whether it's, I think Kevin mentioned, he mentioned about appreciation. I have overwhelming feelings of appreciation and feeling fortunate and in a good place. So when I'm thinking about connection, it's about me finding some time to actually not just be in myself, in my own little bubble, and it's about me listening to the news and what's going on. I make time every day to have a short period of time, because I don't want to get drowned in it, where I am appreciative of the purpose of it is to understand what's really happening out there. And then for me to appreciate, my goodness, just as Kevin said, I'm in such a fortunate situation compared to so many people. But that's about learning. That's about me becoming more aware. If I'm getting grouchy with my husband, or Kevin on the other end of the phone, what's going on for me? Actually naming it, labeling it, and saying, okay, I'm feeling a bit sad, or I'm feeling morose, or I'm feeling frustrated, or I'm feeling bored. Everything's so static. What can I do to increase variety? That's self-awareness. In that growth sector as well, I think there's enormous opportunities for us to expand and grow in that way. Anyone else?
What I've found, just so you can hear me, Mark.
Hi, Mark.
Hi. Is actually, I'm the opposite. I feel I've got even less time than normal, because I'm still working flat out. But I'm trying to manage sort of teams uncertainty and peers uncertainty, and sort of in a sort of slightly different way of working where people can't see each other face to face. So needing more affirmation on a sort of day-to-day basis on just sort of where they are and where they're going is actually sometimes although the certainty is there, what I've actually found is sometimes just the sort of almost the significance of what we're doing feels a bit diminished, because it's quite hard to make, we're making an impact in our own sort of small environment, but everything else seems dwarfed by the macro. And trying to keep people sort of motivated and enthused that actually what they do is still important, even if we're only affecting a small number of people.
Yeah, that perspective, where everything sits in the perspective of the global events, etc., and keeping that motivation going. Yeah. And you're taking responsibility. It's your team, as it were. You're the leader there, Mark, and wanting to help and support people through that.
Yeah, so we've got a small leadership team of 3 people, and we're trying to lead an organisation that's delivering, amongst many things, but care services to vulnerable people. So they still need that day-to-day support, and we've had, but they've been living in quite a lot of uncertainty around lack of PPE and everything else, and still a lot of client contact. We've still got lots of people with direct client contact. We still run a housing association, and that's still all business as usual. As far as it can be. So it's having to deal with a lot of people's uncertainties around how to manage that, but also I'm saying, well, yeah, we can help this small number of people that we're helping, but where does that fit into the bigger picture? Everyone's talking about NHS workers. Nobody's talking much until very recently, actually, about the care sector, for instance.
Yeah. I don't suppose there's any easy answers to that at all, Mark, but just again, having the awareness that the individuals are going through that. They're coping with their own anxieties, uncertainties, etc. And what they can do is the best they can do in the circumstances. And that's almost, you know, that's got to be good enough, as it were, that they can't. I think that's the only reassurance, really, that they are doing the best they can. It's in the business as usual, but it's in a world where that business as usual is maybe being a little bit sidestepped compared to, in terms of people's thought process, is what I'm thinking, in terms of other people around. There's so much with the NHS, which is fantastic and all very deserved, but there's so much else happening that's trying to squeeze the energy and the motivation to get things done and make the difference that you've been making for so long.
Yes, yeah, absolutely.
I think the other thing for me, what's great about these kind of sessions is that reminder that, you know, for all of those people who have more time on their hands and are trying to find ways to fill it, you know, there are still people who are even busier and trying to work in even more difficult circumstances, you know, maybe working from home and not having that face-to-face connection. And I think it's worth kind of reminding ourselves of that, isn't it? And Rita and I constantly sort of saying, let's get in touch with a particular organisation, but we've no idea whether they've all sort of, you know, working at home, or they've all been furloughed or whatever, and therefore have more time to engage with us, or it may be absolute chaos for their organisation now, and we would be the last people that they want to engage with. So, you know, it's worth kind of reminding ourselves of that, isn't it?
Definitely.
I think for me, so sorry, this is Catherine. You can't actually see me because my camera's not working too well at the moment. But I think for me, one of the biggest challenges is kind of the professional meeting the personal, I guess. I've got 3 young children at home. I'm usually pretty good at compartmentalising work and home life, and suddenly everything's kind of mixed together in a very different sort of set of circumstances. So children being homeschooled or attempting to homeschool, attempting to juggle work with my husband and the children, and, you know, everything else that's going on, and also trying to, like Mark said, to kind of support the team, who some of them are going through similar situations to me, some of them in very different situations. So it's kind of a constant battle of remembering some people have more time, some people have less time, and all the different challenges that kind of brings, I guess. Yes, it's an interesting time, I would say.
It is. And some of the growth I was talking about isn't necessarily painless. It may, you know, it may be stretching us to the edge, and we'll be relying on those near and dear to us, and our own resilience, but also those around us to point it out to us. It's a whole mixture of things that are going on, I'm sure, for you. That's an interesting juxtaposition, the home and the personal and the professional life being thrown in together in a way that you might not have planned.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thanks for that, Catherine. Anybody else? Question, final comments, thoughts? Anything that you think might be missing from the list? Anything that you have a real sense is something that's important to you, that's kind of not mentioned in those 6?
I suppose, given the situation we're in at the moment, there's a phrase of self-preservation, but I suppose it fits with certainty. I'm thinking of the whole of avoiding people in the supermarket, which is becoming increasingly difficult. Hence my first online grocery shop today. I don't know, self-preservation. I don't know. Does it fit with certainty? Yeah,
I think just going back to that Maslow model, which again some of you will have seen before, it's definitely, these 6 needs are definitely related to the things at the top of that Maslow pyramid. So Tony Robbins describes them as the 6 human psychological needs. So I think it is about recognizing that we have those basic safety needs, and you know, we need food, we need toilet rolls, and all of those kind of things.
You don't need that many.
You don't need that many, that's right.
Don't need that many.
Electricity.
Yes.
Electricity would be nice.
Yeah, yeah, heat, yeah, bit of sunshine now and again.
Yeah.
Yeah, fabulous. Okay, so just finishing off now, there was something Rita wanted to share in terms of another little activity, Rita. Yeah.
And again, it's an activity that many of you will be familiar with, but just to remind you how taking those few moments a day to remind yourself of things that you're grateful for, or things you've done well, something that you'd consider a positive that's happened or occurred for you during the course of a day, and maybe even starting your morning off looking ahead to the day and identifying the things you're actually looking forward to and your intention relating to it. This gratitude journaling has proved time and time again to give people, first of all, it gives you some structure. It's one of those things that fits in a structure. It becomes a new habit for you. But actually, if you're immersing yourself in something you feel good and happy about, it's releasing all those wonderful chemicals that help us perform at our best. So by associating into those events that have been good and helpful, joyful, whatever language you want to put to that, it's stimulating a very positive ecosystem in your neurology that puts you in a good place to either sleep well with appreciation and gratitude, or set your day's intent ahead. The other point that I mentioned in passing, which is the other side, lots of other sides to a coin there, is to allow yourself to feel whatever you're feeling whilst all this is happening. Notice if you're feeling exhausted, frustrated, all the things that Mark's having to work through, etc. Allow yourself to notice it. Maybe even set yourselves 5 minutes a day to be really pissed off with what's going on, annoyed, angry, sad, whatever it is. But that's also a technique for allowing an outlet without letting it succumb your whole being. Limiting yourself to a particular time of day, every other day, a short period of time where you allow that release, and so that you can experience it, acknowledge it, and let it go. Otherwise, the potential is that we just sit on it and it becomes within, and it will find a way out somewhere, and it may not be as productive. So the two sides, the two very short little exercises that may be useful to build into your habit and your schedule, is one about the gratitude, appreciation and positive intent of the day. And the second one is to allow yourself to feel and sense all those things that are going on. Allow yourself to think of the uncertainty perhaps in the future for a short period of time, and you know you've done it, you can let go and move on. And that's my suggestion for you.
And just really, I wanted just to finish by reminding you all that there will come a point when things change, and it's at that point, I think, then you'll really realize just how much you have personally learned and developed and grown. And the final thing to remind ourselves is about the fabulous resources that we already have within us that are being released currently to adapt to this current situation. So on that note, I think that's a good point to finish. We'll be meeting again on here in 2 weeks' time, Rita.
We are, and our topic for the next session is about the power of beliefs. Many of you know how important they are already, but we'll consider those in terms of what beliefs we're carrying with us and how useful or otherwise they are to us at this moment and in this time.
Thank
So
you.
register again on Eventbrite so that you can be invited along. Continue to share feedback. A number of people sent us emails after the call last week, which was fabulous, just to get that insight into what worked for you. I hope you enjoyed being involved in some polls, because that was a new thing for us. Who knows, we might split the group up next week. That's the other technology we've got.
Oh, how exciting.
So thank you one and all. It's been brilliant to connect with you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks again, everybody.
Thank you.
See you
Bye.
soon.
Bye.
Bye now.
Bye.